Hello friends, this is lesson number 67 in the series of British literature in English, and today in this lesson we shall discuss William Shakespeare. Anyone, whether you are new to literature or you are a master, everyone knows about this man, the great legend of English literature. He is known as the national poet of England, and he is also called as the Bard of Avon. Now what does it mean? Bard means the poet, and Avon actually it is the name of the place where he spent his childhood. So the full name of this place is Stratford upon Avon of Warwickshire. So a bit longer name. So Avon is quite famous. So that is why we just know him as Bard of Avon. He was born on 23rd of April 1564 and he was baptized on 26th of April and he died on the same date 23rd of April 1616. And it is assumed that he was born on 23rd of April. There are not clear evidence about this, and on this day we celebrate the International Book Day. About his contribution to English literature, we know that he has written more than 30 plays, and most of them are just world famous. And he wrote 154 sonnets and 2 long narrative poems. What is sonnet? We have poem if it is a smaller poem of 14 lines or so, as William Shakespeare used to write a 14-line sonnet. So that is called a sonnet, and he wrote 154 sonnet. So in simple words we can say it is the shorter form of a poem, probably 14 lines mostly we see. Okay, what is the structure? How was the rhyme scheme? We shall discuss all these things in separate lesson. About his personal life, he married Anne Hathaway. The lady Anne Hathaway, at the time of marriage, William Shakespeare was 18-year-old and his wife, she was 26, and they had 3 children. First, a daughter Susanne, or Susanna, however you may call this name. She married John Hall, and then she came to be known as Susanna Hall. And then we have a twin. In that twin we have a boy and a girl. The name of the girl is Judith, and she married Thomas Quincy, or Queenie I should say, Thomas Queenie, and she later came to be known as Judith Queenie. And then we have their son, name is Hamnet, and he died at the early age of 11. And people consider that from this name, means the name of his child Hamnet, William Shakespeare got the inspiration to write the play Hamlet. So that is all about his life, or I should say his personal life. And this man, William Shakespeare, he comes from a common family, not a rich or royal family, as the other people, the university wits that we know, they all were university scholar. But on the other hand, we have William Shakespeare, he never went to any college or university. Now this is very interesting that despite getting no education, no formal education in the universities, still William Shakespeare managed to write the great works. So that is really speak the volume of his caliber and talent. Now about his career and works. But first, as an actor, he started his career and he joined Lord Chamberlain's Men. Lord Chamberlain's Men, that is the name of the company where he was participating as an actor. And then he also started writing the plays. And later he became the co-owner of this company. And one more name, that is the Globe Theatre, which is associated with him. Globe Theatre, where most of his plays were performed, and this theatre is located in the south of the Thames River. Thames River, we know, that is in London, and south of that river this theatre is located. Now one more point, Elizabethan age, that is dominant by the plays of the William Shakespeare, but when she died, and in 1603 we have James I, and he get to the throne, and then he gave royal patron to the Lord Chamberlain's men, the company. He gave financial and political support to this company, and later the name of this company is changed to Kingsmen and later Kinsmen. So spellings are a bit different. First Kingsmen and then G is removed, and then we know this name Kinsmen. And about William Shakespeare's acting, he himself played a part in one of the plays written by Ben Jonson, and the name of that play is Every Man in His Humour. Every Man in His Humour. In that play, William Shakespeare played the role of a father, an old man. Most of his plays were published or performed during his lifetime. Now we have a long list of other writers from the Elizabethan age to the modern age, postmodern age. So many writers, critics, they are saying something about him. So we have some selection, and we just see what they have to say about William Shakespeare, how they admire him, or how they point out some of the, you can say, mistakes or the shortcomings or the demerits of the works of William Shakespeare. So first we have John Hemmings and Henry Condell. John Hemmings and Henry Condell. They were the two friends and also the fellow actor of William Shakespeare, and they published a collection of his plays, and almost all the plays were included in the first folio that is published in the year 1623. Remember, in the year 1616 he died, and in the folio of 1623 most of his plays were published. This work was given a preface by Ben Jonson. What is the preface? In the beginning, something is given in the form of thanks or something about the work that is written by Ben Jonson. Now, Ben Jonson, what he says about William Shakespeare, that not of an age but of all time. So he considered William Shakespeare that he is not particularly of age, of Elizabethan age, but he is all-time great. And we all know that even till date, if anyone is going into English literature, he must be knowing this name, William Shakespeare. Next, we have Nicholas Rowe. Nicholas Rowe, he is the first biographer of William Shakespeare. So he wrote biography of William Shakespeare. Next we have Thomas Rymer. Okay, just go through these names. Okay, sometimes you feel that how you will be able to remember these names, but first time you are hearing these names, and frequently they will be repeated, and when you study these writers in a separate lesson, then you easily recall these things. So there is no harm. I am just reciting these names and these points. So Thomas Rymer, he is criticizing William Shakespeare for what? For mixing tragedies and comedies. This is the biggest charge mostly we see against William Shakespeare, that in his most of the tragic plays we see the mix up of comedies and tragedies. Then we have John Dryden. John Dryden, he is a famous English poet of the Restoration Age or the Age of Dryden. Even by his name we have the age, the period that is known as Age of Dryden. So John Dryden says to Jonson, what he says, I admire him, but I really love Shakespeare. In fact, this was a question in UGC NET exam as well, that who said, I admire Ben Jonson, but I really love Shakespeare. So the answer is John Dryden. Then we have S.T. Coleridge, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and he is also praising William Shakespeare. So in the Romantic age, we have this famous name along with William Wordsworth, S.T. Coleridge. So he is praising William Shakespeare. After this, we have a German name. Name is a bit awkward again, August Wilhelm Schlegel or somewhat, however you may pronounce this name. He translated his plays into German language because he was from Germany and he translated. And this man, August Wilhelm Schlegel, he spread Romanticism in Germany. So just go through this name. That's enough. Then we have Thomas Carlyle. He is an essayist from the 19th century and he wrote in 1840 an essay in that he says that King Shakespeare does not he shine, crown sovereignty over us all as the noblest, the gentlest, yet the strongest of rallying signs, indestructible. So he is simply admiring, and when we go through that sort of line, I'm not saying that you have to remember, but there is probability that if such a lines comes in the exam, you at least have some sort of idea that who should be the better option to choose. Then we have George Bernard Shaw. What he says, in fact, he mocks at William Shakespeare. He says that the people who worship Shakespeare as bardolatry, means he was born as a bard. He considered G.B. Shaw, he considered that the new theatre, the new naturalism theatre of Henrik John Ibsen has made William Shakespeare obsolete. So some way he is criticizing that William Shakespeare is now old, it is obsolete. The modern theatre, where we have Henrik Ibsen, such a writer, they are making the theatre more effective and more famous. Now the people are interested in new things, new form of theatre that is these people are producing, and William Shakespeare is now obsolete. It is old. Obsolete means something that is old-fashioned or not that much in use. So somewhere he is criticizing William Shakespeare. Then we have T.S. Eliot. Remember this name, T.S. Eliot? He is the writer famously known for his work Waste Land. He says that he is completely in disagreement with Bernard Shaw. He says his primitiveness has made him truly modern. The qualities of William Shakespeare has made him truly modern. If we read him today, we do not find that his works are obsolete or older. So in this way we see T.S. Eliot is saying that he is equally good to the modern writers. Then we have Harold Bloom. So every time you see some new names, these names are from the modern literature of the post-World War. So the name is Harold Bloom. What he says, Shakespeare was larger than Plato and then St. Augustine. He encloses us because we see with his fundamental perception. So he is considering William Shakespeare greater than Plato or St. Augustine. Plato, we know in Greek literature, this is just a giant, literary giant, Plato. So that was way too back in the 4th century BC or so. But Harold Bloom saying that William Shakespeare is far greater than these ancient Greek writers. Saint Augustine is someone who was famous for spreading Christian religion in the ancient time. Then we have one more term, that is Riverside Shakespeare. What is this? Riverside Shakespeare. It is a long series of the editions of the complete works of William Shakespeare, and it was produced by Houghton Mifflin Company. Okay, it is the name of a company, Houghton Mifflin Company. So Riverside Shakespeare, and this was first edited by Richard Grant White. Who edited this work? Richard Grant White. And in this work we have the collection of his works, the complete works. Now after these references we have first folio. What is this? This was published in 1623. And who published it? I mentioned earlier that John Hemmings and Henry Condell, they published in this work, or in this collection we say rather, 36 plays were included of histories, tragedies and comedies. 2 plays were not included. Which were the 2 plays which were not included in the first folio? Remember, the first is Pericles, Prince of Tyre, Pericles, and the next is Two Noble Kinsmen. Two Noble Kinsmen. These 2 plays were not included. Rest 36 plays were included in the first folio. No narrative poem or other sonnets were included in the first folio. So we have simply just 36 plays in the first folio. And earlier, before this folio, first folio, we have 18 plays were published in quarto. Okay, first how it used to happen actually. The plays were performed by the actors mostly because it was for the performance, not for reading. But when the play was performed and later it was published in the form of a book or so, so his first 18 plays were published in the form of quarto. So now what is quarto? You might have seen a pamphlet, a page you can take and you can fold it 4 times. So on each of the side you see 4 columns. So that is called pamphlet, and that is the example of quarto. On a page, if you take A4 page, you just make 4 columns on the both sides. Now you have total 8 columns. So that is called as quarto. Okay, so that's about the references. Okay, one more reference we take, that is about Raphael Holinshed's Chronicle of England and Scotland and Ireland. That is the main source for his works. Remember, Raphael Holinshed's Chronicle. What is this? Actually, Raphael Holinshed is the name of a person. He is a history writer. We can take, he wrote historic events of England, Ireland and Scotland, and by his name we have this work, Raphael Holinshed's Chronicle. So he wrote Chronicle. What is Chronicle? Chronicle means where you have the events from the history, especially from the history. The chapters, age-wise, the things are written. So that is Chronicle. So he wrote that, and this Chronicle serves as the main source for his works, especially of the history plays which are written by William Shakespeare. So history plays are inspired from Holinshed's Chronicle. If we take the names of such plays like Henry IV, there are 3 parts of this play. Then we have Henry V, Henry VI, Richard III. So whichever the play that is explaining the life of those historic events, especially of those kings and dukes. So these are the historic plays. So these are taken, the source for these plays are taken from Raphael Holinshed's Chronicle. And then we have another name, that is Thomas North. Thomas North, and he wrote the translation of Plutarch's Lives. Plutarch's Lives, that is translated into English by Thomas North in the year 1579. And this work, Plutarch's Lives, serves as the source for William Shakespeare for writing the plays like Romeo and Juliet, Julius Caesar. So these are Roman plays because we have Roman characters. So such plays were inspired from the works of Plutarch's Lives. So remember these two sources. The first is Holinshed's Chronicle for history plays, and then for Roman plays we have Plutarch's Lives. So that is all we have about the references of his works. Now we take some of the questions which were asked in the previous year papers. Already we have discussed some of the points which were asked in the question papers, but still we have a lot more questions. So we just discuss them one by one. According to Samuel Jonson, now, who is Samuel Jonson? Just remember that this writer is famous for writing the Dictionary of English Language, the first great dictionary of English language, Samuel Jonson. He is also famous for writing biographies, but dictionary is the first and foremost thing that we should remember about him. So what he says, there was a question actually, that Samuel Jonson believes that William Shakespeare observed one of the unity in his plays. What is unity? If you have gone through the other segment, that is of criticism in English literature, there I talked about Aristotle, and he talks about the three unities of any play. And which are these three unities? Of time, action and place. So according to Samuel Jonson, which of these three unities are observed by William Shakespeare, and which are the other two which are not observed by him? So we have one clear thing, that he observed the unity of action. According to Samuel Jonson, William Shakespeare followed the unity of action, not the unity of time or place. Then in another question about the Plutarch's Lives, that Thomas North, his translation of Plutarch's Lives, the Roman plays which were the source, which were taking the source from Plutarch's Lives. So we have some options, and the right answer, you just have to be good enough to identify which plays contain the Roman things or Roman source or Roman material, Roman characters. So we have Julius Caesar, Romeo Juliet, then Antony and Cleopatra, and then Coriolanus. So these are the Roman plays, and these plays take the source from Plutarch's Lives. Another question, which author wrote Family Shakespeare? Which author wrote Family Shakespeare? The answer is Thomas Bowdler. Thomas Bowdler. Now what does it mean by Family Shakespeare? Simply that Bowdler, he removed the obscure or severe or the offensive words from his works, or which words could be considered as abusive, 18 plus words. These words were removed from his works, and then the addition what we get of his work that is worth reading in the family. So that is called as Family Shakespeare. Then there was another question, Venus and Adonis is a famous long narrative poem by whom? That is William Shakespeare. Venus and Adonis. In the next question, or one more question I should say, was asked about him that how many sonnets did he write? So the answer is 154 sonnets by William Shakespeare. Another question, in which year the first folio was published? And the answer is 1623. Then in another question it was asked that who published Shakespearean tragedy in the year 1904. So there is a work published as Shakespearean Tragedies in the year 1904. And who is the author? We have the name Andrew Cecil Bradley, or famously known as A.C. Bradley. A.C. Bradley. In another question it was asked that Edward Bond, he wrote a play, the name is Bingo. Edward Bond wrote a play Bingo, and what is the source or what is the main content of this play? And the answer is Shakespeare's life. So this play Bingo is based on Shakespeare's life. In another question it was asked that Dr. Samuel Jonson, he wrote several works, so in that list we had to choose, and one of the work was Preface to Shakespeare. Okay, there is a long list of his works, so among these four options actually we had to choose that which work is not written by him. So just remember, Preface to Shakespeare is written by Dr. Samuel Jonson. And this is the most important questions of all, I would say. Number of time it is asked that which is the rhyme scheme followed by William Shakespeare in his sonnets. So what is that rhyme scheme? The answer is, as I mentioned, in his sonnets we have 14 lines. So simple rhyme scheme. A B A B. Remember, A B A B. Then C D C D. Then EF EF, AB AB, CD CD, EF EF, and the last two lines G G. Very simple. AB AB, CD CD, EF EF, and the last two lines 13th and 14th, that is G G. This is the rhyme scheme. If you do not know what is or how we decide or how we come to know that what sort of rhyme scheme is followed in the poem, in every poem we can easily identify what sort of rhyme scheme is there, identifying the last sound of each and every line, last word I should say, what sort of rhythm it is carrying. Okay, in a separate lesson we definitely go through what is rhyme, meter, everything. In next question we have Samuel Johnson's edition of Shakespeare appeared in which year? So the answer is 1765. In this year the edition of Shakespeare was published by Dr. Samuel Johnson. Another question, when William Shakespeare made his debut as a playwright in London, one of the university wits, now try to recall, one of the university wits call him as an upstart crow. Upstart crow means one of the university wits criticized him that he is in no way educated, how would he be able to write good plays? And who is that university wit? Robert Greene. We have already a lesson on him. When we were discussing, I mentioned this point that Robert Greene was in some sort of conflict with William Shakespeare, and he criticized him by calling him as an upstart crow. The full statement was, Shakespeare is an upstart crow beautified with our feathers. So he was simply copying. He was taking the things from the other writers' works and then he was writing his own work. So he was charging him for plagiarism, the term we commonly have in literature when someone copies a material from others' work, that is called as plagiarism. Now, we have some of the questions from his plays, and I think that I should discuss some of the questions here, and if there is any something relevant to the story, then we discuss that question during the lesson when we discuss that particular play. One play that is written by William Shakespeare, that is Richard III. The question was that in which of the plays of William Shakespeare we see that widowed queens were questioning the assumption of male politics. In which play the widowed queens were questioning the male politics? So the answer is Richard III. Another question, that there is a film Shakespeare in Love. Even on Google you go and you can check, there is a movie Shakespeare in Love. Who has scripted this film? The name is Tom Stoppard. So he is a playwright of the 20th century. Tom Stoppard, he wrote the script of this play, Shakespeare in Love. And apart from these questions, there have been number of questions about the chronology of the plays of William Shakespeare. Okay, one more question about his sonnets, that to whom his sonnets are dedicated, and the answer is Mr. W.H. Mr. W.H. and that is an unknown man. So we do not know exactly who that person was, simply Mr. W.H. Then we have one more question, John Keats. He gave the theory of negative capability. When we were discussing the criticism and theories, and that time we talked about John Keats, and he gave the theory of negative capability. According to him, who is the best example of this? So we have the answer, William Shakespeare. So now what is negative capability? I would say that you should go to the section of criticism and literary theories, and in that you will see John Keats, and there you will get to know that what is negative capability, because already we are getting more than 30 minutes in this lesson. So we will quickly wind up this lesson with a few more questions. There is a term in English literature, like a proverb people use. It is Greek to me. What is this? Greek means the Greek language. But if someone says, if you suppose you write something, and when I check that notebook and I say it's Greek to me, means I cannot understand. Who coined this term? The answer is William Shakespeare. It's Greek to me means I cannot understand this. This is an idiom or proverb you can take as. One more interesting question, that there is a title of a work, The Cat and Shakespeare. The Cat and Shakespeare, A Tale of India. Who has written this work? The answer is Raja Rao, the famous Indian writer Raja Rao. The Cat and Shakespeare. So that is all we have about William Shakespeare. There have been a lot more questions than these, but these questions are related to the plays written by him. So when we discuss these plays, we shall take up these questions as well. So for the moment, you just have to go through the reference points which I have told you, what the other writers have to say about him, and also the questions which we have discussed. These questions has to be considered effectively, because William Shakespeare is very important writer. So whenever you are going into exams, you must go through his works and the literary references which I have told you. So thanks a lot for watching this lesson, and in the next lesson we shall start Two Gentlemen of Verona. So by this play we shall start our journey into his plays. So once again, thanks a lot for watching this lesson, and have a great day.